The smell of antiseptic still makes me sick. Every time I hear that monitor beep, I see him again. The baby they told me was gone. But a mother always knows. This is my story. A memory I never wanted to share, but one that refuses to stay buried. Maybe telling it will finally set me free. Maybe it'll help someone who's ever been told, you just have to move on. It started on a stormy night in late September. Thunder rolled somewhere far away. Each contraction came faster than the last. I was 37 weeks, scared, alone, and praying he'd make it in time. Ryan, my husband, had promised he'd quit the pills. He'd promised he'd be there. But deep down, I knew he wouldn't. I called 3 times before they wheeled me toward delivery. No answer, just his voicemail. "Hey, it's Ryan. Leave a message." "I'm having the baby," I whispered. "Please, just come." He never did. Bright lights, cold metal, rubber gloves snapping. The smell of latex hung in the air. Sharp, chemical, unnatural. One nurse kept watching me with eyes that didn't match her smile. I didn't realize it then, but she already knew something I didn't. "Stay with us, honey. Just breathe." That's the last thing I remember before everything dissolved into white. When I woke, it was morning. The room was too quiet. No baby crying, no heartbeat monitor, only the hiss of air conditioning and the steady tick of a clock. Nurse Collins stood by the window, clutching a clipboard like it might save her. "Where's my baby?" I asked. "Is he okay?" She lowered her eyes. "I'm so sorry. Your baby didn't make it." "I want to see him," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. "He's already been taken to post-care. Paperwork's being processed." Paperwork. They spoke about my baby like he was a file to be stamped and shelved. I screamed his name, even though he hadn't been given one. And then everything went dark again. Ryan showed up the next afternoon. He smelled of sweat and stale smoke. His pupils were pinpoints. He didn't ask to hold me. "Guess it wasn't meant to be," he muttered. I wanted to scream, to make him feel something. But all I could do was turn away. From the corner of my eye, I saw Nurse Collins watching. Her face looked pale. Her hands trembled. At the time, I thought it was pity. Now I know better. That night, the ceiling lights flickered. I lay awake staring at the patterns they made on the wall. Somewhere down the hall, a baby cried. Soft, desperate. My heart jumped. For one breath, I was sure it was him, my baby. I pressed the call button. "There's a baby crying," I told the nurse on duty. "Is that the NICU?" A pause. Too long to be casual. "All newborns are accounted for, ma'am. Try to rest." Her tone felt rehearsed. I waited until the corridor fell silent, then slipped out of bed. Every step hurt. I followed that faint wail down the hall until it stopped at the nursery door. Inside, shadows of incubators glowed faint blue, tiny shapes under blankets, a lullaby playing low. A hand touched my shoulder. "You shouldn't be here," someone whispered. I turned. Nurse Collins again, eyes red from crying. She guided me back without a word, but at the door, she leaned close. "Sometimes things happen here that shouldn't." Then she was gone. Morning came with paperwork. Discharge forms, signatures, boxes to check. Under cause of loss, it read, complications at birth. I asked for the death certificate. They said it would arrive by mail in a few weeks. Weeks? Why would it take weeks? Back home, the house smelled of stale coffee and broken promises. Ryan was gone again. An empty pill bottle lay on the counter beside a note. Don't call me. I need time.
He wasn't the one who lost everything. I was. But I couldn't forget Nurse Collins' whisper. Sometimes things happen here that shouldn't. Days passed. I sat by the window, waiting for the mail truck. Each time the box was empty, the ache in my chest grew heavier. The certificate never came. Then, one gray morning, a sound at the door. No knock, just a soft scrape, like paper sliding against wood. An envelope. No name on the front. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. Inside was a single folded page written in shaky letters. Your son is alive. For a moment, the world tilted. The room swayed around me. I read the words again, certain my mind was playing tricks. But the ink was real. The letters smudged beneath my thumb, and I swear, I could already hear him crying again. I stared at those 3 words until the ink began to blur. Your son is alive. For at first, I thought it had to be some kind of cruel joke. I checked the envelope again. No return address, no name, just my own trembling reflection in the kitchen window. The house was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. Each second sounded like a heartbeat I once knew. I sank into the chair, clutching that letter like it might vanish if I blinked. For months, I had forced myself to believe the doctors, to bury the pain, to survive. But now a single sentence had torn open the wound I'd spent so long trying to close. I tried to tell myself it wasn't possible. They'd shown me the chart, the paperwork, the condolences. But deep down, something inside me whispered, the same voice that had screamed the night they took him away. Check again. The next morning, I went back to the hospital. The same sterile walls, the same flickering light above the reception desk. Only now, every sound, every face felt wrong. When I asked for the nurse who'd been on duty that night, the woman at the counter froze. She looked at me the way people look at broken glass, careful, distant. She said, "I'm sorry, we can't share staff information with patients." Her politeness was practiced. Her eyes weren't. I thanked her and left, but I didn't go far. I sat in my car across the street, watching the revolving doors. After an hour, a familiar figure stepped out. Short hair, blue scrubs, that same uneven walk. It was her, the nurse who told me my baby didn't make it. I wanted to run to her, to demand answers, but fear kept me glued to the seat. Instead, I followed, just far enough to see where she went. A small cafe 2 blocks down. She ordered a coffee and sat alone by the window. For 10 minutes, I just watched her, until finally I walked inside. She noticed me before I could speak. Her eyes widened, and she set her cup down slowly. "Miss Carter, you shouldn't be here." Her voice trembled like someone who'd been waiting to say something for so long. "I got your letter." The blood drained from her face. She glanced around, lowered her voice. "You can't talk about that here." We stepped outside, into the cold air. She shoved her hands into her pockets, breathing fast. "I didn't mean to scare you," she said, "but I couldn't stay quiet anymore." "Tell me the truth," I begged. "Is my son alive?" She hesitated. Her eyes filled before her words did. "Yes," she whispered, "but it's complicated." I felt the world tilt. The pavement, the streetlights, the noise of traffic, all of it faded until there was only her voice. "After the delivery," she said, "you were unconscious. There were arguments, paperwork that didn't make sense. Then your husband showed up. He was not himself. He spoke to someone from administration. I didn't understand it then. The next day, your baby was listed as deceased. But I saw him. He was breathing. He was fine." My knees nearly gave out. "Why didn't you say something?" She said, "I tried. I was told to keep quiet or lose my job. They said it was a hospital decision. I didn't know what they were planning until it was too late." I looked at her numb. What did they plan? She took a shaky breath. "They arranged for an adoption, off the record. Someone paid to make it disappear. Your husband signed the papers." My chest ached with every word. He signed?" She nodded. "He said it was better this way, that you couldn't handle another loss. He was desperate for money, and the people behind it knew that." The ground blurred beneath me. I leaned against the brick wall, gripping it like it could hold me up. "Where is he now?" I asked.
"Your husband? I don't know. He stopped coming around after that night. But the child, your son, was placed with a family somewhere out of state. I don't have names, only a code from the adoption file." She pulled a small folded slip from her pocket, hands shaking. On it, just a few handwritten numbers. CS0472. I stared at it like it might whisper the truth if I looked long enough. What does it mean? It's a part of a transfer record. If you can find someone who works in records or social services, they might trace it. I could barely speak. "Why are you helping me now?" She looked down. "Because I held him. I heard him cry. And every night since, I've wondered if he ever stopped." Those words cracked something inside me I didn't know was still intact. For a moment, neither of us moved. The wind carried the faint sound of traffic, a distant siren. Then she slipped away, back into the crowd, leaving me with that code clutched in my hand like a lifeline. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table staring at that scrap of paper under the weak light of the lamp. Each number felt like a breadcrumb leading out of the dark. I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? That a nurse gave me a secret code tied to a baby who was supposed to be dead? No one would believe me, not without proof. So I started digging. I called the hospital's administrative line, pretending to be an insurance agent needing verification for case file CS0472. They put me on hold, transferred me 3 times. Finally, someone said, "That file's restricted." Click. Restricted. The word echoed like thunder. Over the next few days, I went through every drawer, every folder my husband had left behind. Bills, rehab forms, letters. Nothing useful until I found a crumpled envelope tucked behind a cabinet. It was addressed to him from a woman named L. Turner with the hospital's return address. Inside was a check stub, $5,000. Memo line, consultation assistance. My hands went cold. That was the price of silence. I drove to his last known address, a rundown motel off Highway 9. The manager said he hadn't been there in weeks. But as I turned to leave, he called after me. "You his wife? He left something in the room." He handed me a small box, sealed with duct tape. Inside were a lighter, a torn photograph of me holding my belly, and a single piece of paper with the same code, CS0472, scrawled across it. That night, I knew there was no turning back. Whatever had happened, whatever they'd done, my son was out there, alive. I took the photo, the code, and the check stub and spread them on the table like puzzle pieces. Then I dialed the only number I could think of. "Nurse Daniels?" I whispered when she answered. A breath on the other end. "I was hoping you'd call. I found something. That code, it's connected to a payment. My husband was involved." "I know. And I think I know who handled the paperwork. A clerk named Melinda works nights and records. She's afraid to talk, but she might listen to you." "Why?" "Because she lost a child once, too." That was all I needed to hear. The next morning, I went back to the hospital, this time not as a grieving mother, but as someone ready to tear the truth out of the walls if I had to. The corridors looked different now. The hum of machines, the smell of antiseptic, it all felt like part of a lie. I found the records office in the basement, a maze of gray filing cabinets and flickering lights. A woman with tired eyes looked up from her desk. "Can I help you?" I held out the code. "I think you already have," I said quietly. She frowned, glanced around, then took the slip from my hand. When she typed it into her computer, her face went pale. "Where did you get this?" "Please," I said, "just tell me if it's real." She hesitated, then turned the monitor slightly toward me. There was a file number, a date, a note, closed, confidential transfer approved by internal committee, and one more line, destination, Jackson County, Missouri. My pulse hammered in my ears. "Is there a name?" She shook her head. "But that's more than anyone should have access to. You didn't get it from me, understand?" I nodded, tears burning behind my eyes. As I turned to leave, she added softly, "For what it's worth, sometimes the system hides miracles in plain sight." Outside, the wind was cold against my face. For the first time in months, I felt something stronger than grief. Purpose. My son had a name, a place, and I was going to find him.
The drive to Jackson County felt longer than miles could measure. Each signpost blurred past my window, like the world was trying to outrun the truth I was chasing. The nurse's letter sat on the seat beside me, folded and refolded until the paper had gone soft at the edges. Her handwriting trembled like fear itself. "Your son is alive." Those words didn't just haunt me, they kept me breathing. I checked into a roadside motel just outside the county line, the kind of place that smelled like stale coffee and rain-soaked carpet. The man behind the counter didn't ask questions. I was grateful for that. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed, phone clutched in both hands, dialing numbers I hadn't called in years. Law offices, hospitals, records clerks. Most hung up the moment I mentioned the name of the hospital. The silence that followed was louder than any answer. Every night, I heard footsteps outside the motel. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was guilt catching up. 2 days later, I met her again, the nurse from the letter. She looked smaller in the daylight, her uniform replaced by a plain gray sweater. Her eyes darted across the diner, scanning for anyone who might be listening. I leaned in. Who did? She hesitated, then slid a small flash drive across the table, her hand shaking. Everything is in there. Files, transfer records. They made it look like a legal adoption. My chest tightened. And my husband? She looked down at the table. He signed the release. They paid him. The world tilted. For a second, I couldn't hit anything, just the dull roar of my own heartbeat. "How could you let this happen?" I whispered. Tears welled in her eyes, because they threatened me too. But please, make it right. She left before I could ask anything else. Her coffee sat untouched, still steaming, like she had vanished between one heartbeat and the next. That night, I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. It was all there. Scans of signatures, timestamps, and forms that should never have existed. One name appeared over and over. Dr. Mason, the hospital director. I printed everything, laid the pages out across the motel bed like puzzle pieces, my hands trembling over every line. Somewhere in that paper trail was my baby boy's stolen heartbeat. The next morning, I walked into the courthouse. The air inside smelled of old paper and polished wood. Every footstep echoed like a memory I couldn't erase. The clerk behind the counter looked up. "Can I help you?" I placed the folder on the counter. "You can start by opening this." Her eyes widened when she saw the hospital seal. She picked up the phone. Within an hour, 2 detectives sat across from me, flipping through the pages. "This is serious," one said. "It's not just serious. It's my son." Days blurred into meetings, affidavits, and questions that dug deeper than wounds should. Every time I told my story, I felt like I was living it again, bleeding without a wound to show for it. And then he showed up, my husband. He walked into the courthouse with the same swagger I remembered, the same hollow look in his eyes, but now he was sober, or at least pretending to be. "You're making a mistake," he said, voice flat. "They'll never believe you." I stared at him for a long time, feeling nothing but the echo of what love used to be. "I don't need them to believe me," I said quietly. "I just need the truth to." The trial came faster than I expected. The courtroom smelled of old paper and cold justice. The judge's gavel cracked like thunder, and suddenly my life was on display. The nurse testified first, her hands trembling, voice cracking as she told the truth she'd buried. Each word was a nail in the coffin of their secret. Then came the documents, one after another, stamped, signed, undeniable. Each document landed like a hammer. The air in the courtroom felt thick, like everyone was holding the same breath.
When they called my husband to the stand, he wouldn't look at me. He talked about money, addiction, the pressure, the lies. He said he thought it was the only way. But when they asked him if he knew the baby had survived, he hesitated. That silence said everything. The judge's face hardened. She said, "We'll recess until further review." And just like that, the room erupted. Reporters scribbled, officers whispered, and I sat there frozen, every muscle waiting for something that hadn't yet come. After the verdict, the detectives approached me. One of them handed me a small manila envelope. He said, "Found this during the investigation. You'll want to see it." Inside was a photograph. It showed a little boy standing in front of a white farmhouse, his hair the same soft brown as his father's, but his eyes were mine. Tears blurred my vision. The world went quiet again, like time itself had stopped to breathe with me. Tomorrow, I'd meet him. But some truths demand a price, even the ones that set you free. Outside the courthouse, the sky opened up, rain pouring in sheets. I tilted my face to the storm, letting it wash the courthouse dust off my skin. Somewhere in that rain, I could almost hear him, a child's laughter carried on the wind, faint like a promise finally kept. I closed my eyes and whispered to the storm, "Mommy's coming." The rain had stopped by morning, leaving the world washed clean, like even the sky was trying to start over.
I sat in my car for a long time, parked just outside the park gates. The photo of the little boy lay on the passenger seat, edges soft from where I'd held it too many times. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. After everything, the lies, the courtroom, the waiting, this was the moment I dreamed about and feared all at once. A woman approached my window. Her hair was silver at the edges, her smile gentle but careful. "You must be May," she said softly. "I'm Emily, his adoptive mother." Her voice wasn't what I expected. There was no defensiveness, no coldness, just warmth, cautious but real. I stepped out of the car, the air still damp with the scent of rain and earth. "She's over there," she said, pointing toward the swings. My eyes followed her hand. There he was, a little boy in a red jacket, dark hair falling over his forehead, his shoes kicking at the mulch beneath the swing. He was humming to himself, off-key, innocent, alive. My heart forgot how to beat. For a moment, I couldn't move. Every memory, every sleepless night, every unanswered prayer crashed inside me like waves breaking against stone. Emily placed a hand on my shoulder. "You can go to him," she whispered. "He knows you're coming." I walked slowly, each step heavy with years I could never get back. When he looked up, his eyes met mine. Those same eyes from the photo, the same eyes I'd seen in the mirror every morning. He didn't speak. He just stared for a second, head tilted, as if his heart recognized something his mind didn't quite understand. Then he smiled. "Are you my other mommy?" he asked. Tears spilled before I could answer. "Yes," I whispered, kneeling down so our eyes were level. "I'm your mommy." He didn't hesitate. He just ran straight into my arms. The world went silent. All I could feel was the weight of him, the warmth, the heartbeat against my chest, the tiny fingers gripping my coat like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment.
I didn't care who was watching. I didn't care about the years that had been stolen or the pain that had built this moment. All that mattered was that he was here, alive, safe, mine. Emily stood a few steps away, watching quietly. Her eyes were wet too, but she was smiling. We've loved him. We always will. But he deserves to know where he came from. I nodded. I can never thank you enough, I said. You've already have, by fighting for him. We spent hours in that park. He told me about school, his favorite cartoon, how he liked peanut butter but not jelly. Every word was a gift I'd been waiting to unwrap for years. When he laughed, I realized something. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need the past to pay for what it took. I just needed this moment. This proof that love could survive anything. As the sun dipped behind the trees, casting long golden light across the grass, Emily called him over. It's time to go, sweetheart. He hugged me tight once more, his breath warm against my neck. Will I see you again? He asked. I smiled through tears. Every chance I get, I promised. Every single chance. He nodded, satisfied in the way only children can be, and ran back toward her. I watched until they disappeared beyond the trees. Then I sat on that same park bench long after the laughter faded, holding the photo against my chest. The storm had taken so much from me, but it also shown me something no court or hospital ever could. That truth, once spoken, has a heartbeat of its own. When I finally drove home, I rolled the window down, letting the wind tangle through my hair. The world felt lighter. For the first time in years, I wasn't running from the past. I was driving toward the future. As I passed the city limits, I whispered softly to the night, "You're home now, baby, in every way that matters." You know, we all carry storms that no one else can see. Some of us lose things we thought we'd never get back. But sometimes, just sometimes, the truth finds its way home. If you've ever been through something that tested your faith, your hope, or your heart, I want to hear from you. Because you never know, your story might be the one that gives someone else the strength to keep on going.